All right, and we're back. The intros are in place. The finalists are there at their tables ready to get their match started. With us right now is Chris Shepard from the Pokemon Company. He's going to give us the proper expert commentary as we jump into the finals of TCG.
Thanks for having me. This should be a good one.
So, if I get this right, we've got Igor Costa, who is the Portugal's national champion 4 years running.
That's correct. That's how he's qualified every year. This is 4th straight Worlds.
So that seems like he might be the favorite for this match.
It's hard to say. They have very similar decks, and Harrison's played really well so far, so I think it's going to be a very even match at this point.
And speaking of decks, I see they're both on the Darkrai deck.
Yeah, we had a couple of other strong decks through the field, but the Darkrai deck really held out all the way through the tournament.
And they're actually fairly close together on their lists, right? I'm looking at them. It looks like there's a total of 15 cards difference.
Maybe that. Sometimes it's just preference. A lot of cards have similar effects, but they've chosen, by preference, but very similar decks.
So it'll come down to who's a better player, who's running harder this weekend?
At this point, these players are so good that oftentimes that is all that's different is a couple of good plays, and that's all skill.
So these lists are both on Darkrai and Mewtwo. EX in each case, right?
Right. The Pokemon EX are a relatively new reintroduction to the game. When the player knocks out a Pokemon EX, they get to draw 2 prize cards. But on the flip side, these Pokemon EX cards tend to be extremely powerful.
And they seem very, very popular this weekend. It seems like EX Pokemon are a feature of almost every single deck people are playing.
Absolutely. They also are basic Pokemon, so they're easy to play and very fast. So if you can get a good basic Pokemon EX out, you might be able to get early round knockouts and advance quickly.
So which Pokemon are they hoping for to start with as their active Pokemon? Is it Darkrai?
Darkrai is a good start, but actually both of these decks carry Smeargle, and Smeargle is not a Pokemon EX. It has an ability where it can look at your opponent's hand. You get to look at your opponent's hand, choose a supporting card there, and play it as it was your own. So you actually get an extra supporter card played per turn, a card that you can normally only play once. And that's a good way to start the game. You get to see a lot of cards. You get to turn over your hand very quickly, and you get to get a really fast start.
Right, and so both of these lists are on Professor Juniper, Professor Oak's New Theory, and N, and various numbers. So there's a lot of card draw involved with that ability.
Yeah, that's how the game's played right now. They want to see as many cards as they can, so they'll turn their hands over, through one of those methods as quickly as possible.
And it's not just seeing more cards either, right? Because with Professor Juniper discarding, they get to use the discard pile. Each of them's running copies of Dark Patch and copies of Junk Arm.
Exactly. Cards in your discard pile don't hurt you terribly bad because there are so many good ways to get cards back out of your discard pile, like the 2 that you just mentioned. There are some other cards that neither of these players are playing, but there are a lot of ways to get cards out of your discard pile.
So I think we see here Harrison did not have any basic Pokemon in his opener, so he had to go back for more.
Exactly. If you don't have any Pokemon in your first 7 cards, not only do you have to shuffle your hand back into your deck, but your opponent gets to draw 1 extra card to start the game with.
And that 1 card can be very important.
Absolutely. Especially when the decks are so similar, like slight advantages like that can make a big difference. Let's see if he gets 1 this time.
Does not look... Oh, looks like he has got a Darkrai EX in his hand, if I saw that right.
Darkrai EX is a popular card right now, not only because it can do a lot of damage, it can also hit your opponent's bench Pokemon, and it can help move your Pokemon around with its Dark Cloak ability, right. Allowing a free retreat for any Pokemon that has darkness energy attached to it.
And it looks like Harrison was actually aiming towards the Darkrai decks being a big factor this weekend. Some of the choices in his list look like they're aimed towards beating other Darkrai decks.
It was a popular deck at the National Championships where Harrison played well. So I imagine that he knows exactly what to get into.
Right. So here we go.
3, 2, 1.
And the handshake, sportsmanship is still a very big thing this weekend.
They're very competitive, but they play with a lot of civility. It's nice.
So this is N is his supporter for the turn, which
Yeah,
is each player.
shuffles their hand into their deck and then draws the number of cards equal to the number of price cards they have remaining. So at the beginning of the match, they both get 6 cards.
And then it's kind of a card that stays good as long as you're in the lead.
It's actually better if you are behind because you would still have more price cards on the board than your opponent. So you would draw 6, maybe they would draw only 3. But sometimes just those 3 cards can make a difference. So you'll see that played at pretty much any time.
Right. And how devastating is seeing it turn 1, kind of messing with the opponent's strategy?
I don't think it's actually all that tough. You know, the players like to know what they have in their hands, and this is a good way to, see fresh cards. Maybe, especially in Harrison's case, where he was short 1 card because he didn't draw a Pokemon in his first round. That leveled the playing field right there. He actually got a card back. He doesn't mind seeing N at that point.
Okay. So you see Prism Energy for Igor down there. He is running Prism Energy, and Harrison isn't.
Yeah, I think that's a preference. Igor made a big deal about playing Prism Energy. We'll see. He has a Terrakion in his deck where Prism Energy can come in handy for activating Darkrai EX's free retreat with the Dark Cloak ability. He can play Prism Energy onto Terrakion, call it a Dark Energy when he needs to retreat, call it a Fighting Energy when he needs to attack.
Which is some nice tech.
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't have that kind of diversity, then it's not as necessary.
So are you seeing, was that an Ultra Ball we saw on the top there?
I believe so, yeah. And you have to discard 2 cards, but then once you do, you can get any Pokemon you want out of your deck. And see, he went with Smeargle. We were talking about how he likes to get Smeargle out early so that he can use the portrait ability.
Right. So all this shuffling that's going on, for those of you who are not familiar with competitive play, is whenever a deck needs to be searched for a card, it needs to be randomized afterwards. And the shuffling is to make sure that neither player knows what the top card of the deck is, or, God forbid, there is some sort of shenanigans going on. The other player always gets an opportunity to shuffle further or cut the deck to make sure that each player has randomized it.
So they... the Smeargle was to play N, so they both shuffled and draw 6.
That's what it looks like, yeah. So we have, is that another Ultra Ball?
It appears so.
And he's getting rid of, is that
It's a
potion?
It's a plus power and
power.
a Darkrai EX that he's putting in to draw a different Pokemon. And that
So what do we figure he's going for here?
I would imagine that he's also trying to get his Mewtwo out, but he actually goes with a Smeargle. And the nice thing about that is Smeargle has a free retreat, so he actually gets to use the portrait. It's actually a Pokepower, not ability. He gets to use the portrait Pokepower twice. So he is now in effect used the a supporter 3 times while only playing 1 from his hand.
So he could see 21 cards a turn.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, well, the N's worth 6 cards, and then the Professor Oak's new theory.
6.
So yeah,
Juniper 7.
7. So he's seen a lot of cards already. With 54 cards in your hand, he's probably seen at least a third of the cards that have passed through his hand. It's not bad.
And this is all just to increase consistency, right? The players want to see as close to the same game as they can every time because they think their strategy is the best. They want to keep using that strategy.
They might be looking, I mean, absolutely. They know how they want to play. They're also trying to get maybe the one card that they're really looking for. If they can turn over their hand, they'll finally get it.
Well, I do see some interesting 1 copies of cards here in their lists.
Mm-hmm.
I see from Harrison a Max Potion, which is something that I don't think I've seen in the other top 8 lists.
A couple of players have used the Max Potions. They're not bad for like when Smeargle takes damage. Max Potion gets rid of any damage that's on that Pokemon, but you have to discard all the energy that's onto it. It's easy to heal a guy like Smeargle who does not have any. You don't intend on putting any energy on it, so it heals it basically for free.
Okay. I'm going to answer a question really quick from online. Defy the Fallen asks, why are the TCG players putting paper over the back of their cards?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's actually not paper, they're a plastic sleeve, and there's a couple reasons. One is that if the cards could get damaged during gameplay, this might make them marked. Just make sure they're not marked and make sure they're less likely to get damaged. And in addition, if you're playing cards that might get shuffled into the opponent's deck, something that goes to the middle of the field, this ensures that you don't end up with one of your Pokemon in your opponent's deck or the other way around.
Also, some regions have different card backs, and so to make sure, and players are allowed to mix and match from different regions. So for consistency of card backs, they put them all in sleeves so that all the cards look exactly the same.
Right. Is this the Japanese region has the pocket monsters back as opposed to the Pokemon from the U.S.?
And so now they all look the same. You can play, if you had a handful of German cards and some Japanese cards and some English cards, they're all eligible.
So is that looks like a Professor Juniper from Igor?
Right. Has to discard the rest of his hand and then draw 7 cards, 7 fresh cards.
And again, the discarding isn't so bad for him because he can get access to those cards later on in the game a variety of ways.
Absolutely. He actually discarded a dark patch there, but you can also discard one of those darkness energy and get it with a different dark patch that you might have.
So we can kind of see his hand here. It looks like that's
Terrakion, and that's somebody that he really expects to be able to do some damage with.
And is a card that Harrison is not running, so it's kind of how he's addressing this mirror matchup.
Exactly. Terrakion is a good counter to Darkrai EX because Darkrai EX is weak to fighting type Pokemon.
Right. And that weakness means that it deals
double damage.
Twice as much damage. Some consideration from Harrison here, kind of running through his options.
Neither of them have any energy on their Pokemon, so they're unable to attack. This is all set up right now. They kind of have to bide their time. Mewtwo EX is an interesting Pokemon. It does more damage by how much it has on it, as well as its opponent, so the defending Pokemon. So neither are too excited about getting a lot of energy out there for fear that it'll be used against them.
They seem a little bit nervous in both cases. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked to both of them before the tournament started, and Igor in particular seemed like he was a little bit cautious coming into this round. I was a little surprised. Igor's got a lot of experience, including playing in Worlds. So
the prizes, though, for this first place here, when you win, it's $10,000 and a significant number of boxes, some factory sets.
You get, I think, is it 36 booster packs?
Two boxes
72
for
booster
each
packs.
set for the next year.
And then you get a travel award to come to the 2013 World Championships.
So we see a ton of energy here. How did all that energy get on the Darkrai?
The Dark Patch getting the energy out of his discard pile, which allowed to play straight to him.
Was that 2 Dark Patches that turn?
It would appear so. I actually
with that many?
miscount on how many he already had on him.
We weren't on the count. We weren't on the field there on camera. We were looking at some players' faces. So that looks like it's what happened. Mm-hmm. So I was going to say, 10 for first place and then 7,500 for second place. So just by getting this far, they've already done very well. So perhaps some of that nervousness can be attributed to exhaustion as well.
And that's valuable. I think that right now these guys are playing just for the title, and then they'll be very happy with the award later on.
So that looks like an Eviolite put on the Terrakion, is that right?
Right. Eviolite reduces attack damage by 20 to that Pokemon, but it only works on basic Pokemon.
Right. And it works even on the bench, right? Which is important.
It works even on the bench.
Because Darkrai's attack deals 30 damage to a Pokemon on the bench.
Exactly, and Eviolite will slow that down considerably. Eviolite is common in these decks because so many of the Pokemon are basics. As a matter of fact, in these 2 decks, there are no Stage 1 or Stage 2 Pokemon.
So I've seen some of the discussion between whether it's better to go with a defensive strategy, something like Eviolite, or a more offensive strategy, something like Dark Claw. And I see people waver back and forth between an even split or all of one, all of the other. Do you think the format right now lends itself to a better defensive strategy?
I actually would think maybe that Dark Claw is a little bit more of an advantage because of the power of Darkrai EX. But in this particular set, neither player are playing Dark Claw. Both players are playing Eviolite.
And they're entirely on Eviolite, so maybe results would speak for themselves.
Absolutely. it's those kinds of small variations that we've seen. Even, we see a lot of Darkrai and Mewtwo, but it's those decisions that really make a difference as they progress.
Right. Some consideration. Some deep stares.
Yeah, they're definitely watching each other play as much as watching what they're doing themselves.
And this is mind games too, right? You want your opponent to think you're doing something other than what you're going to do.
These players are, I mean, at this point, they're both very methodical and know exactly what they're doing. It's hard to say that they're really affected by gamesmanship, but maybe there is some.
And then we see on Igor's bench, he's got a little six-sided die on his Pokemon. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the card game, tuned in for the video game, that represents how much damage is on that Pokemon. And they're in increments of 10. So there is 30 damage down there with the 3 on that six-sided die. Now there is 60 damage. That's Darkrai's attack, dealing 90 to the active Pokemon and 30 to a benched Pokemon. He chose to not hit the Terrakion because it would have been 20 less. So he's going to optimize damage overall rather than take out what will probably be a big threat for him.
Right, and also Mewtwo EX is a high HP Pokemon EX card, so getting as much damage onto him so that when he finally does get knocked out, he could draw 2 prize cards. It's a lot more valuable than the one Terrakion prize card he might earn.
Right. And particularly for something like this, where both players are playing a lot of the same cards, the extra cards from prize cards can be very, very important.
Absolutely. With so many Pokemon EX, and each time you knock one out, you get 2 prize cards. You may only have to knock out 3 Pokemon to win the game.
They're twice as hard to knock out, though.
They're twice as hard. They're especially guys like Mewtwo with 170 HP.
So seeing a mostly full bench on the other side here, but he's kind of focusing on leaving Darkrai in. So that looked like the standard 90 and 30, which ends up being 70 and 30 again because of the Eviolite.
Correct.
This is this, he's playing the Ultra Ball there? Or, no, he's playing a Junk Claw. Yeah, it looks like he played a Junk Claw to get...
A Junk Arm?
Oh, Junk Arm, rather.
Right, to get the plus power.
Double colorless on the Mewtwo.
Right, and double colorless plus the double colorless that was on the Mewtwo does 80 damage times 2 because Mewtwo is weak to Psychic, is 160, plus the plus power is 10 more, which is 170, and that knocks out Mewtwo. That was an excellent play.
So really quick, while the players are considering their play, I'd like to remind the listeners and viewers on the stream that we will have some trivia coming up after this match. We've got some extra kits of the swag here with the exclusive World Championships 2012 items in them. So, get ready to answer some trivia questions right after this match ends. Still considering his options?
Absolutely. And that was enough to knock out Mewtwo. Darkrai, was...
So that's game, yeah.
That's game. He didn't draw the energy that he needed and conceded.
Darkrai, Darkrai is going to take out, next turn.
Right.
And then he'll have no active Pokemon. That's game.
That was game. Yeah, excuse me. He drew the energy. He didn't draw the Pokemon.
Right.
He needed to. Excuse me.
So just like the video games, this is best of 3. So we've got 1 at least and potentially 2 more games to go with these same decks. So having seen each other's decks, do you think they're going to switch up their strategies, try to play a bit differently for game 2?
I would actually be surprised. At this point, the players know their decks so well that they try to remain consistent to how they want to play. They're not going to try to let their opponents affect them too much.
And part of that's this deck, though, right? This deck's a very aggressive deck, very proactive, wants to do something and do it well.
Exactly. A lot of hard-hitting basic Pokemon. Get your cards out, get the energy on them, and try to maximize the amount of damage. We saw that through the plus power just now, although in effect it kind of backfired because he didn't get the Pokemon he needed to back it up.
Right. Now they're playing fairly light on Pokemon. I see 10 Pokemon overall in Harrison's deck and 12 Pokemon overall in Igor's deck, which is not very light, but certainly not as heavy as it could be in some other decks.
Yeah, the fact that there are no Stage 1 and Stage 2 Pokemon in these decks is a big factor in that. That's one of the reasons that this deck is popular, because they can put in as many trainers and supporter cards, and if they're running any stadium cards that they want, and they don't have to sacrifice energy to do so.
Right. And part of this is because they're so heavy on the EX Pokemon, having one EX out is in many ways like having two out. So drawing one EX, you have the effective attack power of two Pokemon on the field.
A basic Pokemon that can do 90 to the defending Pokemon plus 30 to one of the bench Pokemon, that's a hard-hitting Pokemon.
So we've got a couple people asking online about some other card games where you have a sideboard or additional cards that you can switch between for games 2 and 3.
In Pokemon, you have the same 60 card deck all the time, and you are playing with all 60 cards every single game. In the World Championships and in Pokemon tournaments, you have to play with the same deck from the beginning of the tournament all the way through. So the deck is as much is being tested as much as the player's skill. Now, one of the things that happens is at the beginning of each hand, they have to put their 6 prize cards down, and that makes a difference. You don't know what's in those 6 prize cards, and that does add some variation and some uncertainty to your deck.
So you could see someone maybe ultra balling for a Darkrai and ending up with no Darkrai because they're all on the prize cards.
Darkrai, especially if they haven't used a card that will let them see through their entire deck.
So we just played a Pokemon Catcher, which is switching one Pokemon for another.
At the moment, I'm not sure
why. I'm not really sure why they did that either.
That was the same Pokemon and no energy on them, but...
Because he's going to discard it anyway to Professor Juniper, so he might as well.
Right.
I think this might be a mind game thing.
Yes, a little bit.
For those of you familiar with some other games or not familiar with the card game as opposed to the video game, players are allowed to play as many trainers as they want, except for certain types of trainers, such as supporters. Professor Juniper, Professor Oak's New Theory are supporters. You can play one of those per turn.
Right.
Except that each of these decks is running a Pokemon with the power that lets you play a supporter from your opponent's hand. So you get effectively 2 or sometimes more of those per turn.
Correct. So it looks like Igor is off to not the best start. Shaman is not a Pokemon that he wants to attack with. And Darkrai obviously is already loading up. If Igor doesn't get another strong Pokemon, he's going to be in difficult shape.
Well, it looks like he got another strong Pokemon.
It looks like he got what he needed, yeah.
And as far as things go, is it ever advantageous to have no Pokemon on the bench? If you're sure you're not going to be knocked out this turn, having no Pokemon out there is going to save you 30 damage from Darkrai's ability.
That's, yes, but you never want to put that into your opponent's hand. Like, your opponent gets to draw a card, and if they draw a card that's going to do more than the card that they have out, you're going to be in trouble.
So that looks like that was random receiver?
Random receiver.
So random receiver.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, they flip over their cards one at a time until they reach one of those supporter cards, such as Professor Juniper or Professor Oak's New Theory, and that card gets added to their hand. So it's another way to get those powerful supporter cards into their hand.
So really it's like they're playing even more copies of those draw 7s, draw 6 cards, which makes sense. You want to see a lot of cards.
Yeah, the cards all kind of behave the same. It's a good way to, drop the hand you've got and draw a whole bunch of new cards. There's others that don't have that same effect. Nobody's playing Charon, but what it does is let you draw 3 cards off the top of your deck.
So what we just saw there was a couple dice on a card. That card's a dual ball. That's the only copy being run in the top. Or actually in these finals, I don't know about the top 8. And what dual ball does is you flip 2 coins, and for each coin you win, you get to search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it in your hand.
Right, for each heads you flip, which is each evens.
In the interests of time, players will often roll dice rather than flip a coin. It's easier, it's less likely to kind of bounce its way off the table. So that was flipping 2 coins if you're reading the cards.
The instructions or the official rules of Pokemon, dictate a coin, but at this level we actually have them use dice exclusively because coins tend to fly off the table.
Right. You wouldn't want it hitting somebody in the audience.
Nope.
Going back to random receiver is also good because the cards that aren't the supporter go into your discard pile, right?
Actually, the cards that they actually go back into your deck.
Oh, so they get shuffled in. Okay.
Yeah, they get shuffled back in. So he's playing N, so they're both going to turn over their hands once again.
And we haven't seen any Pokemon knocked out yet, so it's going to be 6 new cards for each of them.
It's correct.
So we're facing down, is that 2 Darkrai's versus a Darkrai, a Terrakion, and...
That's the Shaman.
Shaman. So it looks like perhaps Igor's in a bit of a better position at this point. He doesn't have quite as much hitting power, but he's got ones that are good against the Darkrai.
He's caught up considerably, and I think part of it was it looked like maybe Harrison was a little bit slow to get his energy out,
Right.
and it allowed Igor to get in there before Harrison could take out the Shaman while it was in the active position.
And he's already up basically a full turn worth of attacks with that 70 points of damage.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I think we see, is that 2 Eviolites and a third one down here on the bench as well?
Yes, and that was an Eviolite that Igor played before Junipering. It was in his hand, and he didn't want to just waste it in the discard pile.
Because you're just going to discard all the cards you haven't played yet.
Right, so he just played it before playing Juniper very early in the match.
And Pokemon are limited to one of that class, that class of card attached to them.
Exactly. You can only have one Pokemon tool card. So in this case, they're all playing Eviolite. But if it was a Dark Claw or a Rocky Helmet or one of those cards, that's the only one they can play.
Right. So in this instance, it's not going to do much of an opportunity cost. He's not going to want to attach something else there and be unable to do so.
Exactly.
So we see a Darkrai subbed backwards for, is that a Mewtwo from Harrison?
See, I believe so. He put Mewtwo up.
Yep.
He looks like he's kind of running shy on energy with 3 strong Pokemon out there, but with only 2 energy played so far.
And he potioned that Darkrai with 70 damage on him, so he's down to 40 damage. Potion is kind of, is that another potion? No, it is a...
Yeah, that was a regular potion, and Harrison...
So it's a potion and then a Trash Claw for another potion.
With a junk arm for
Junk arm,
yeah.
right. And that's the potions and the max potion are what Harrison had kind of put in his deck in an expectation that he would be seeing a lot of Darkrai strategies.
You know, Darkrai does 30 damage to a bench Pokemon, but if you have a potion that heals 30 damage, it really slows down Darkrai's advances. And Harrison told us that he thinks that he's playing potion is not only great, but it's something that he hasn't seen in a lot of similar decks that he's faced.
So that's his key to getting to the finals, you think?
Apparently, and he's 1 game up, so I guess it's working on at the finals level as well.
And this is Harrison's first Worlds, right?
This is his first Worlds. He won the Florida Regionals and then finished in the top 16 at Nationals after going 9-0 in his preliminary rounds. But this is his first Worlds after playing for about 5 years in Pokemon tournaments.
Well, if you're going to go to your first Worlds, you might as well win it.
Yeah, he's going to think this is pretty easy at this point. But like we said, Igor, 4-time Portugal national champion for the last 4 years, and that's an automatic
4 years running.
4 years running, and that's an automatic berth to the World Championships. So he has a lot of experience at the top level in these kinds of situations.
A lot of frequent flyer miles too, I'd assume.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's Pokemon Catcher, and Pokemon Catcher will let you choose 2 Pokemon to switch of your opponents.
So what lets you do if one of the bench Pokemon's weak, low on HP, lets you pull them in and knock them out?
Yeah, and it didn't look like he had the energy to knock out Darkrai, but I know the damage to knock out Darkrai, but he was clearly a target that he wants to take out.
Right, and you can also, if you're worried about an attack from the active Pokemon, push the active Pokemon away and have that be the focus of Pokemon Collector.
Absolutely. Although at that point Mewtwo did not have any energy on him, maybe a double colorless would have been enough to get that rolling.
Well, double colorless and a Dark Patch?
Well, Mewtwo would not. Dark Patch will only be effective to put energy onto Darkness Pokemon. So it would not have had any effect on Mewtwo, or wouldn't have been allowed to be played on Mewtwo. But a double colorless energy with 3 more energy attached to it's a defending Darkrai does 100 damage, minus the 20 for the Eviolite, but that's still a lot of damage. And see, now Darkrai just got taken out. So.
And Eviolite seems like an interesting card here because it seems like it's more powerful than it should be with EXs because its restriction is it only works on basic Pokemon. And
right.
EXs are basic Pokemon, but they're kind of a special kind of basic Pokemon. And it seems like, this is an unintended, kind of unintuitive interaction here.
It is. It makes the math more difficult because these Pokemon do so much damage, but then you have, 20 subtracted. Maybe you would have been able to knock them out with some really hard hit, but then the Eviolite slows it down. It actually kind of softens the blow of these Pokemon EX a little bit, which it keeps it competitive.
And so when Terrakion, has the weakness to the fighting, and when he hits for all of that damage, but there's an Eviolite on, how does that work?
Eviolite is calculated after the weakness is factored in. So if Terrakion were to do 90 damage, it would go to 180 damage first, and then the 20 would be subtracted. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
which is not quite enough to take out a Darkrai by itself.
Maybe we'll see a plus power to kick it up to a little bit more.
And that's an extra 10, which would be exactly enough there.
Right, exactly.
So I do see plus power in both of the lists here, I believe?
I believe so,
Both of the lists, both players are running 2 copies of it.
And we saw it as, Igor played effectively to knock out a Mewtwo in the first game just before he himself got knocked out because he didn't get the Pokemon he needed for his bench.
That doesn't look like that's going to be the case
No,
this time because if Igor knocks out both of these Pokemon, he'll be drawing 4 prize cards anyway.
Yes, and Igor definitely looks like he's in the better position right now.
This looks like he's retreating and subbing in a... Is that a Smeargle?
Brought in Smeargle so that he can play
Looks
Igor.
like
Harrison
N.
wanted to play Igor's N, so they're going to both shuffle up.
We're going to get 6 cards and 4 cards.
Right. This is the time where N is the perfect card for Harrison because he's going to outdraw Igor, and he needs to fill his bench. He needs some energy. Hopefully he can get it.
At this point, if you guys are noticing the game slow down, both of the decks do kind of utilize their cards that have gone through the discard pile through cards like Dark Patch or Junk Arm.
Junk Arm, yeah.
So the players picking up the pile and looking through them is trying to decide whether or not they not only have a Junk Arm right away to play, but whether or not they want to look for that with one of the supporter cards.
The players, obviously, they can't look through their prize cards or through the deck or anything like that, but the discard pile is something that each player is allowed to look through their own and their opponents. So sometimes you'll see the opposing player grab the discard pile and float through them to see what cards they could be getting, the next time they play a Junk Arm or something like that.
Uesagi Tadao asks us, he knows there are banned Pokemon in the video game, but are there specific cards banned in the TCG as well?
TCG does not have any cards that are in the most recent sets that are banned, but we do, to keep the game fresh, retire old sets as new sets come on. So these players are playing all the way back to the beginning of the Heart Gold and Soul Silver set. Next year they'll play all the way back to the beginning of the Black and White set.
And that's all the expansions from the card game that say Black and White, Dragons Exalted, for example.
Dragon Exalted is coming out in a week, and then no specific cards are banned, but there are older cards that are no longer in play.
And then each card, ones that have been reprinted, are sometimes changed, right? So I know Potion, once upon a time, back in the heyday, would only heal 20 damage or 2 damage counters.
Right.
And now Potion heals 3 damage counters.
Right. When it was introduced, reintroduced just recently, it gained that extra 10 healing power.
So are you allowed to play with the older printed copy of Potion?
You are allowed to play with the older printed copy, but you follow the new rules.
So even the older ones heal 30 points.
Right. The rules are based on the title of the card. So if it says Potion, you go by what the most recent rules of Potion are.
Seems pretty simple. And you can play any language card, right?
Absolutely. And you'll see, especially You know, these kids are, excuse me, these not necessarily kids at this level. These players are collectors as well as players, and so they like to get, you know, the rare cards in different languages, things like that. So you'll see those played once in a while.
Yeah, you'll see the EXs. There's a couple versions of art for each of them. One that kind of has a full breakout of the frame.
Right. That is actually within the same set. The Pokemon EX that Igor is playing is the basic art, and then the one that Harrison is playing the full art. They're the same rules. They have the same card text. There's just one is more of a collector's card, and the other one is not.
So you're, a little bit less likely to pull that second one in a booster pack.
Correct. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Would have to pay a little bit more for it if you go looking for it on the secondary market. And then I think there's some artists here today too. So one of the things that some people do to get their Pokemon kind of fancier is get them signed by the artist.
Right. Although I might be wrong about this, but that is considered card marking. So at this level, they won't play with those cards. I mean, they'll absolutely do it, but they won't make it into their final decks.
So we see a potion here taking some damage off of that Mewtwo.
Apparently, yeah.
And some energy. So
Mewtwo now has its 2 energy. So if it were to choose to play, it could come in and do its powerful attack, the X-Ball attack.
Right, which at this point is going to do a lot because there is sufficient energy on the other side.
Right. X-Ball does 20 damage times the number of total energy between Mewtwo and the defending Pokemon.
So that looks like 100 damage currently.
It could hit Darkrai EX for 100 damage at this point.
And if he throws a double colorless on Mewtwo for the next turn,
it will do about 140, and that's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage.
This is also a time where maybe he would prefer to bring in a Pokemon like Smeargle, if there was, or excuse me, Shaman, because he has enough damage to maybe take out Shaman, and Shaman can't attack, so it'd be a cheap card for him to take out.
So I'd say maybe Harrison is looking for a Pokemon catcher to switch that Darkrai to the bench.
Well, possibly. These guys are a whole lot better than me, so I don't want to speculate too much on what they're going to do.
I know it looks like Igor is a lot more confident now than he was game 1.
He seems to be on a roll right now.
And despite being down a game, you know, he does not look nervous.
No, I think he's going to play an Ultra Ball here and get rid of 2 Pokemon. I'll be interested to see what he brings out. He's definitely set up well. So what Shaman does when it comes into play is allows you to rearrange all of the energy on all your Pokemon, how you see fit. His bench is full right now, so he'll have to get one of his Pokemon out of play. Either it'll get knocked out, or
there's actually he's running. Is he running Super Scoop Up?
Or play Super Scoop Up.
Or play Super Scoop Up. I don't see a Super Scoop Up.
Igor is playing Super Scoop Up.
So.
He's in great shape right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be...
He's got only 1 prize card left, and Harrison does not have any Pokemon left on his bench.
At this point, Harrison, either way, you know, as soon as he loses 1 more Pokemon, that's game. So he is struggling. He has no prize cards taken.
He's back against the wall. We're heading quickly toward a 1-1 draw going into the 3rd game.
Yeah. Which would be exciting because then
Absolutely.
we'll see 1 more game from these guys.
That's when the pressure's really on.
A quick follow-up to that question, somebody asked about alternative formats, and there is a format wherein you can play any cards from any of the expansions, but it doesn't appear in any of the Battle Tour or the professional circuit. Right.
We stick with our legal format. There is an unlimited format that when we play in our larger tournaments, we stick with the legal. The unlimited is a challenge. The Pokemon trading card game's been around for a long time, and there are a lot of cards out there. So part of it is the knowing all the rules. These players are familiar with the current crop of cards, and if there was a large number of cards, they just wouldn't know what to do. Yeah.
So I think here we see the portrait ability trying to decide whether or not he wants to play a supporter, and I think he may have chosen not to.
Looks like it, yeah. He turned
So
it over.
it may be that the only supporter was N in his hand. I didn't quite see the hand well enough, but
Right.
he might want to avoid playing N because he might want to avoid giving Harrison a new hand of cards, perhaps giving him an answer that he draws off of that.
It looks like it.
Yeah, at this point, Harrison's got one chance to draw an answer, and something, if he used an N, he'd have.
Right, you might be giving Harrison what he needs by playing an N for him.
Which is so sometimes even if you can use that card draw, you don't necessarily want to.
One of the rules of Smeargle is if there is a supporter card in the opponent's hand, you don't have the choice to not play it. You have to play it. And so if Harrison had only an N, Igor would have to play that N card. And that would be devastating when Harrison has 6 prize cards left and Igor has only 1.
So we see a Darkrai on the bench for Harrison, frantically trying to dig his way out of here, but I don't think it's going to happen for him.
He's got his back against the wall. He needs to take some Pokemon out.
We saw the attack take out Smeargle there, and Harrison gets a prize card, but he's still four Pokemon to knock out, or 2 Pokemon EXs, so he's still very, very much back-footed. Yeah, that hand is the I know I'm going to lose. Let's just get it over with that.
Harrison has that look on his face. That'll do it.
So, the player's going to be going to the 3rd game, which will decide who we get for the World Champion.
For the Masters Division World Champion. This has been a great match so far.
So, really quick, while they are shuffling up and getting ready to present, we're going to take this opportunity to have the trivia question.
All right.
So, if you guys feel
definitely. If you guys want to jump in here and win some swag here, mail your answers to onthespot@gamespot.com. Give us your answer, your handle, and your mailing address to make sure that you definitely get the merchandise that we're giving away here. Arthur, I think you got the question for that, right?
I think I do. So the first trivia question of, I think, 3 today.
We got 3 of these packs we're giving away, and you saw them at the top of the broadcast.
So the first trivia question is, name all 7 EV evolutions in National Pokédex order. One more time so you guys heard. Name all 7 EV evolutions in National Pokédex order.
All right, so if you think you know the answer, email your answer to onthespot@gamespot.com. Provide the answer, your handle, your name handle, and the mailing address to make sure you can get one of these slick Pokemon World Championships 2012 prize packs. But now I guess you guys are. It looks like they're ready to start the third match here.
Looks like they are just about ready. So we saw an extra card for Igor game 1, which didn't actually end up helping him.
No, because they played N on turn 1. And they kind of reset that. I would not be surprised. I bet we see a lot of those on. There it is again.
There it is again. So actually, this time Harrison's going to be up a card.
Absolutely, and it's more common when we see deck lists like this when they're only playing 10 Pokemon. It's much more likely you're not going to draw a Pokemon in your first hand.
And really quick to clarify, for handle, we want the GameSpot handle or the GameSpot username for your account for that trivia question. So, shuffling again.
It might have been that both of them missed having any Pokemon. So at that point, nobody gets to draw an extra card, and they just start over.
And you have to have no Pokemon. You can't decide that you don't want this Pokemon out to start with, so you're going to start with a new hand.
If you have a basic Pokemon, that's the hand you have to play with.
So this time it looks like Igor does have a Pokemon to start with. He's getting his 6 prize cards there, and so does Harrison. So looks like we are good to start this time. Again, those cards on the side of the screen there are the prize cards. You get to draw 1 for knocking out an opponent's Pokemon, or 2 if that Pokemon is an EX.
I'm just going to butt in here. A lot of comments in the chat was basically wondering how you could register. If you go to GameSpot.com, you could register to be a GameSpot user for free. So if you are not a GameSpot subscriber, go ahead and register, and you can enter to win the Pokemon prize pack.
So yeah, starting out, it looks like we have a Darkrai and a Mewtwo.
Mewtwo EX.
Harrison starting off with an Eviolite on the Darkrai, which does not add to Mewtwo's damage. It's only energy. It's not attached cards.
It's correct. Only energy. And he immediately plays Professor Oak's New Theory. So he played the 2 cards that he wanted out of his hand, and then he's going to turn it over and see 7 new cards.
Yeah. 6 new cards?
6 new cards.
Yeah, Professor Oak's New Theory is shuffle your hand into your library and draw 6 new cards.
That's correct.
If he hadn't played the Eviolite, he just would have shuffled it in, so there's no cost for him playing it there. It's a pretty good start, and he gets to see 6 new cards for something he wants. Maybe some energy, maybe some more Pokemon.
And the way that Mewtwo hits, any way that you can slow that Pokemon down, Eviolite makes a lot of sense to put it on Darkrai EX. Right. Now or later, it's a valuable card.
And he's got a Dark Energy. It looks like a basic Dark Energy.
Yes.
I think
but he'll require 3 energy before he can play his Darkrai EX's attack Night Spear.
Right. And that's the one that deals 90 to the defending Pokemon and 30 to a bench Pokemon.
That's correct.
So we see, was that Professor N? Or not Professor N,
that was N.
Supporter N?
That was N. And so they're both going to shuffle 6 in.
Yep.
It looked like maybe Harrison showed the 6 cards that he had, just to say, just to show
I
Igor.
got nothing,
yeah,
right?
exactly. That it benefited him as much as it benefited Igor.
And that's more of the mind game stuff.
A little
you
bit.
want your opponent to think that whatever they're doing is helping you just as much. You killed my Pokemon? That's fine. I don't want him anyway. He's knocked out.
Pokemon, there's also sort of a camaraderie when they play. They like to talk about what they've done and what they're playing, and if it doesn't hurt, I think that Harrison doesn't mind showing them. They know what each other have in their decks in general, so it's not a surprise what Harrison could be tossing away.
Right. At this point, it seems like they've seen most of their opponent's decks just through this.
Right.
The discarding 7 and drawing 7 more helps.
Yes.
And I suspect that each of them have a support team that's kind of talking about what they expect to see.
These players spend a lot of time discussing decks and talking about strategies online, and as well as when they come here, they've been playing all weekend. So they're well tested. They know what strategies work. They'll try new strategies, and very quickly they will go on and develop other strategies.
If you can't hear that cheering from the back, I suspect that means we have a world champion for one of the other divisions. We're still waiting on the Masters, though, which is what we've got the video coverage on. So we've got still Mewtwo facing down Darkrai, and yeah, that is. So that's the juniors division has been determined.
Yes.
And that's juniors is under the age of 11, right?
It's under. It's around under the age of 12. Shutogaki is a repeat world champion from Japan. He's fantastic.
Yeah. So for those of you who I've heard some chatter from the not here for the tournament beachgoers this weekend about how it's just about luck. I think repeat world champions is a pretty solid indication that there's a heavy amount of skill involved in this.
There are
really fast. Here we see Ultra Ball getting rid of a couple cards, looking for a Pokemon.
Right.
Ultra Ball gets you any Pokemon at all, including an evolution, but there are no evolutions in these decks, just basics.
Right.
Part of the reason for discard is you sometimes want to put stuff in your discard pile to attach with, for example, Dark Patch.
Right, exactly. Putting that Darkness Energy works out perfectly for Harrison's plan here. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a Smeargle here.
Or is he finding it, or is he? Nope. So he's decided on finding a Mewtwo.
Mewtwo, as I said. Oh, but he still had a Smeargle in his hand. That's
so what he discarded there was the Darkness Energy, which we'll be able to use later, and a supporter. And since he is playing Professor Oak's New Theory this turn, he couldn't have used that supporter anyway. It would have simply been shuffled in. So he's discarding 2 cards, but it's not really costing him anything to do so.
Looks like it.
So he's going to see 6 new cards off Professor Oak's New Theory. We'll see if we can see those cards as he pulls. Nope. I don't know. He doesn't seem that excited about it.
Definitely playing tentatively. I think maybe the, knowing that this is a sudden death match, maybe these guys are playing a little bit more cautiously.
So he's subbed in Smeargle. Is he going to...
So there's the Dark Patch that he got rid of via the Ultra Ball so that he could put another energy back onto Darkrai.
So that's a pretty good turn there. Darkrai's now on 3 energy, so he can use his Dark Spear attack.
That's right.
He's using... So this is the Pokebody, or the Poke ability. So he's getting...
Poke Power.
Power, that's the one. So he's getting another supporter this turn.
Right.
Getting even more cards. At this point, he's already attached energy this turn. He's already played his own supporter. He's looking for maybe another Eviolite.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for maybe a switch now that he has the energy he needs to attack with Darkrai. He's already retreated once to get Smeargle up, so now you can only retreat from your active position once, but you can use a switch Pokemon to switch their positions as for as many of those cards that you have.
So the retreat is the rules ability. You do it once. You can play cards that break the rules as many times as you want per turn.
That affect the same thing as retreating.
Really quick, I'd like to congratulate Everett R, handle Pyronic EX from Middlebury, Vermont, who has won our first swag package. He'll be getting a bunch of cool exclusive to Kona, Hawaii World Championship stuff. Congratulations, Everett. So looking at the match again, I'm seeing lots of consideration from both players here now.
Yeah, this is especially Igor looks like he's a little bit slow to get energy out. We'll have to see if he can get that Mewtwo up and running. Mewtwo loves as much energy as it can get on it.
Yep.
So he's chosen to play Professor Oaks as well.
Looking for energy, I would assume.
Probably.
So, and I think that might be a second determination.
Right.
Maybe the seniors division.
It looks like Chase Maloney in the seniors division is going to be the world champion.
So now we are just waiting on these guys to finish up to have all 3 of our world champions for the trading card game. And we will go over them, maybe some background on them after this match is over.
Okay.
So it looks like he's still maybe a little light on energy. Igor has chosen to play only 14 energy in his deck. Kind of a distribution among dark, double colorless, prism energy. Harris on the other end is on 13 energy, 1 less, but he has 4 copies of double colorless instead of 3, and particularly for the EXs that hit so hard when they have that energy, double colorless can be very, very strong.
All Mewtwo EX needs for its X-Ball attack is 1 double colorless energy, and it can do 40 damage, and then every extra one that he puts on there is going to do a lot more damage.
Right. So I think perhaps Igor has hedged his bets. He's running the fighting Pokemon, which is good here, but it means it's only good against the Darkrai decks, or best against the Darkrai decks.
Right, but Igor is also playing the Tracheon, so that's why he's got the Prism energy
and the fighting energy,
so that he can take out that Darkrai. Now we haven't seen Tracheon be especially effective in this match. In the match, and hasn't been present at all in the game.
That was another random receiver, which is you look until you see a supporter.
Right.
All of the supporters that are in either of these decks are more card draw, so it's just even more card draw. Followed up with an N, who is, at this point still, both players getting 6 new cards.
Unlike Smeargle, random receiver, you aren't required to play the card that you get. So even though he got N, he didn't have to play it right away.
It puts it in your hand, right?
Exactly.
And so you could, in fact, play it later on if you wanted to.
If it was the
it
card
isn't a decision.
If the card you didn't want, then you're fine. Yeah. It looks like, peeking at Igor's hand, he did get quite a bit of energy. He might choose to start attacking with X-Ball right away. We'll see.
Be helpful, but he's already kind of a bit behind, and you can't play all of the energy. You can play 1 energy per turn from the rules, and then you also have cards that let you attach energies. Things like Dark Patch, which lets you attach a dark energy from your discard pile, or some abilities of some Pokemon let you attach additional abilities.
Right.
So is it Celebi that has the attach 1 Pokemon power, the CMT decks?
Yes, that's correct.
So, which I know some made the top cut for today, but none in the finals.
Although we didn't see as much of it as I was really expecting in the tournament. Part of it was, this deck tended to play very well against it, and so people went in this direction.
It seems like it worked well for him.
It did.
And I was talking a bit earlier about kind of going one step beyond in the metagame and thinking not only what everybody's playing, but also what everybody is playing to beat what everybody is playing.
Right.
And it seems like that's what Igor is doing here with the fighting.
Right, exactly. That's why he has Tracheon in there. he hasn't gotten it working yet. But see, we're watching the random receiver again, where he flips cards till
very
he gets
random
one.
receiver.
Right, very.
A quick follow-up question from Famous Swan is, what's the difference between Senior Division and Masters Division? The way it works for the Pokemon Championships, World Championships, is there are 3 divisions: Juniors, Masters, and Seniors. Juniors is born between
97 and 2000. Is that right?
So yeah, Juniors is born in 2001 or later.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Seniors is 1997 through 2000, and Masters is born in 1996 or earlier.
Right.
So it's 3 age groups, and you play opponents within those age groups, both
Right.
in the trading card game and in the video game.
Both of these players are in their late teens, but we have players in the Masters division that are much, much older, especially in our last chance qualifier where everyone's allowed to play. We'll get players of all ages competing.
Parents? Do we get parents
We get
coming
parents,
in?
absolutely.
And the parents are already here, right? Because they get a travel award with their competitor
Exactly.
being qualified.
Exactly. So you'll see them playing as well. You know, they get into it when their children get into it, and
So that was-
some of them are quite good.
That was, I think, a Pokemon catcher switching out the damaged Mewtwo for a Darkrai.
That's correct. And
Is he going to try to take out the Darkrai here, or is he going to hope to switch out his own Darkrai and hit 490 and 30?
He might choose to do that because without any energy on Mewtwo at this point, even if he did have the double colorless, he wouldn't do enough damage to knock out the Darkrai. So it would be a risk to put a hard-hitting Pokemon up front that you aren't going to be able to take out.
So I saw a Pokemon catcher and then a trainer. So maybe he had to, he wants to get use out of it before he looks at 6 new cards.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit of a gamble.
Right. Let's see what he does here. So there's the double colorless.
So he could hit
now
for
he could hit for X
60?
He could hit for, it looks like there's 2 energy
that
on
the second
Darkrai, so he
energy?
could do 80 damage at this point. Darkrai already has 30 damage, so it would do 110. Oh, but then Shaman lets you move all that energy around. He just put 40.
So now we see
4
6
more
energy on
energy.
Mewtwo and 2 on Darkrai. So that's 160 damage?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is 120 damage.
Sorry, and then the 2 for Darkrai? So we've got 4, 6, 8,
yeah, you're right, 160.
which is
That-
enough to knock out Darkrai.
Absolutely. That is
Which is strong play.
a strong play.
So I think he was maybe hoping to see that off end and got there.
That was the perfect time to play Shaman right there. He had energy on his bench. He needed it to get it onto Darkrai as quickly as he onto Mewtwo as quickly as he could.
So is that, it looks like an Ultra Ball discarding 2 dark energy?
Yeah,
No,
what-
that's a
That's a plus power to.
no, it was a Trash Claw.
Junk Arm.
Junk Arm.
Yeah. And then Professor Juniper to discard his 7 cards, either his hand to draw 7 new cards.
Now here we see Harrison looking at the discard pile over here,
Right.
keeping an eye out for, worried about that same thing happening again,
Right.
or perhaps even counting to see whether or not his opponent has got any given cards left.
Right.
Because
like
once
what-
you've put them there to a certain extent, there's only one way to get them back. So
Right, especially special energy. Special energy, there are virtually no ways to get special energy back out of your discard pile. By most of the rules, you would only be able to get basic energy out.
right. So knowing that your opponent's not going to jump a turn on you and get that double colorless could be
Right,
very.
you can count your opponent's double colorless energy in the discard pile and know exactly how many they're playing.
And Igor is only on, again, 3 double colorless energy. So it's possible that Harrison is expecting 4 here and may make a mistake based upon that.
Maybe.
Or it's possible that Harrison knows that he's only on 3. We don't, they aren't officially given the deck lists, so they don't have any official knowledge of what's in their opponent's deck. It would only be unofficial based upon counting previously or
Right.
some friends letting him know.
Right, and paying. I mean, they've played each other twice now. They've been paying a lot of attention to what the other person's doing. That's the kind of thing that they count while they're playing their first matches to be prepared in the future matches.
And then you can see the same opponent twice in an event. Like if you play an opponent day 1
Yes.
before the cut, you might see them again after the cut.
In fact, Igor, he lost. Harrison lost twice. Is that right in the Swiss rounds?
Yeah, I
Or was
believe
it
his record was 5-2.
Right. Or was it Igor?
And I think actually he, both the people who beat him made the cut today too as well.
I believe so, and I believe that Igor played a person that he lost in the preliminary rounds and beat in the in the elimination rounds. So you know,
well,
he saw that
obviously
player
beat
quite
it
a bit.
now that he's in the
right,
finals,
obviously
yeah.
he won in the right.
And part of that is once you've played somebody, if they have a surprising deck, something you're not expecting to see, after the first time, it's going to be a lot weaker for that sort of thing. So kind of the surprise angles and the tricky cards have less of an impact once you get to day 2, and even less once you get to the finals.
Right. And that's why, I mean, the decks get a little bit more similar as you go on, because you know, you go with what wins as opposed to what's going to be surprising.
So I think we see here a Ultra Ball discarding a supporter on a potion for a Mewtwo.
And it looks like
Potion's not so good right here since none of his Pokemon are,
Right.
you know, injured at all.
See, these Mewtwo versus Mewtwo, and these guys are hitting each other really hard. Harrison's knocked out a Darkrai EX and a Mewtwo of Igor. He needs only 2 prizes left.
So Harrison needs to knock out 2 of the weak Pokemon, or just 1 Pokemon EX, to win the game here.
That's correct.
Igor is random receiving, looking for, once again, one of those card draw supporters. And I'm not quite sure what he drew. Looks like he's maybe got a... so he's got an Ultra Ball. He's getting rid of the Dark Energy and another Mewtwo for a
Tracheon.
Right, which is, again, something that's strong against the Psychic Pokemon.
Tracheon is particularly a Darkrai hitter, too. So we might be seeing a Pokemon catcher to bring in a Darkrai EX off of Harrison's bench.
And then a retreat to bring out...
Exactly, yeah. But really, boy, this is still an up in the air
Still
match.
anybody's game.
Absolutely.
So you see that's an Eviolite. Interesting that he put it on Mewtwo. Oh, so Mewtwo, it looks like he's trying to prevent his opponent from just winning the game here.
Well,
Mewtwo's the EX,
right.
and it's the EX that he's got on the bench with less health. And so he's trying to make sure that his opponent, particularly if he's hitting the bench for 30,
right.
is going to hit the Darkrai with 170 hit points instead of the Mewtwo with 100.
He also had, he also knew he was going to be playing Smeargle, so he was playing all of the eligible cards out of his hand before potentially playing a Juniper or an N, where he'd be getting rid of those cards.
So he definitely wants to play the Eviolite. He's chosen to do the one. He thinks here that maybe without that, his opponent Harrison's going to go after Mewtwo X and just try to knock him out and draw those last 2 prize cards for the game.
We just saw Igor play, looks like Super Scoop Up, is that right?
Igor is on a couple copies of Super Scoop Up. That's return a Pokemon and all attached cards to that Pokemon to your hand. It looks like a Super Scoop Up. That's one of those cards that's been printed several times and gets new art each time.
Right. That is definitely a Super Scoop Up. He hasn't actually pulled that card yet, he doesn't have to be the active card. He gets to choose which card he's going to pull.
So he could, for example, pick up that Mewtwo and the Eviolite. He gets him an Eviolite to put on something else.
Right. If he had energy, you would imagine he'd pick up Shaman so you can play Shaman again, because its Celebration Wind only goes into effect when Shaman gets put into play.
Right.
But without any energy on his bench Pokemon, there's really no point.
And what's that Celebration Wind do again?
It allows you to rearrange all of the energy across all your Pokemon in any way you'd like.
So that you throw a bunch of Pokemon on that Mewtwo, which does tons of damage.
He chose to put Smeargle into his hand so that he could play Mewtwo up front without having to retreat.
And that means, since he hasn't retreated, he still gets to use the game rule retreat once this turn if he decides he wants to.
But then he also has a double colorless that I thought he...
I saw double colorless in his hand. I think he's trying to decide whether or not to play it yet, and he hasn't yet played it. So that looks like the game rule retreat there.
Yep.
Through a Mewtwo.
Oh no, he played Switch. He played Switch to make that.
Switch. Okay. And he is copying his opponent.
He did have a double colorless on that Mewtwo, so he's still waiting to find a reason to play that.
Looks like he's digging. Looks like he has got a game plan and he's trying to kind of put it together.
It does look like he's looking for a specific card.
I'm not sure what that plan is.
Right there, and helped him quite a bit because he has more prize cards remaining than Harrison does.
And it's not just getting him to see 4 new cards. It's also costing Harrison some cards.
Absolutely.
It's both kind of breaking up, deflecting, and causing problems for Harrison's plan.
It's
and
a disruptive card,
right.
and you'll see it in virtually every deck being played at this level.
And it's also costing him cards in general. I think Harrison had more than 2 cards in his hand, so now he's down cards overall.
Absolutely, yeah. I believe that... So Harrison needs to draw only 2 more cards. He's got.
So that was Juniper to discard his hand, draw 7.
Yep. He's got 3 energy on Mewtwo right now. He probably doesn't have enough to knock out the other Mewtwo.
Well,
I
think if he has, if he has a double colorless and then he switches in the
Mewtwo.
Well, no, this because the Mewtwo EX down there's got Eviolite on it, so that's only going to be
Mewtwo EX is weak to other psychic Pokemon,
right?
So he'll do 200 damage. Right.
So he has a potential win right here if he saw what he needed off Professor Juniper.
Right. A Pokemon catcher gives Harrison the win, I believe.
He's looking at his hand.
It doesn't look like he's got it. Otherwise, I think he'd be played by now.
There's no real slow rolls here. It's if he's going to win, he's going to take home that 2,500 extra and the first place prize.
Absolutely.
And be happy about it.
Yeah. There's no reason to stall.
So looks like he's doing some math, trying to figure out how many of each copy is left in his deck, trying to figure out his odds and make a decision. And I know a lot of players will try to run the math here, but it's complicated math. Sometimes it just comes down to your gut feeling.
And he's in a bad position because if he chooses to not attack, or even if he does take out Smeargle, he doesn't win the game because Smeargle will give him only 1 prize card.
Right. He needs to take out one of the Pokemon EXs.
And Mewtwo EX will come up and have enough energy on Mewtwo EX to knock out Harrison's own.
And Igor is on 4 prize cards. So if Igor knocks out that Mewtwo EX, he draws 2 of them, and all of a sudden they're in the same state that they're currently in, wherein one Pokemon, if it's an EX, will win the game for either player.
Exactly.
So again, this is still either player's game, very much so.
Yeah. It's
sounds good. The sound volume's good. You can see kind of he's slowing down. His hands are not quite as firm and solid.
Right.
Now is where the nervousness sets in. Because
Harrison knows he's in a tough spot, even though at first glance he looks like he's in pretty good shape. You know, he's thinking like 2 or 3 turns ahead. He knows what's coming.
But even then, any one unexpected play, and all of a sudden, he could be losing the game.
Right, absolutely.
He's thinking about it.
Right.
So it looks like he was considering retreating that Mewtwo so it does not get, knocked out by his opponent this turn.
That's correct.
Kind of throwing one of the non-EX Pokemon under the bus, if you will.
Right. And one of the things that happened was they just called time, which means that each player now gets 3 more turns and the game is over.
Okay, so we were at that time limit then.
So we're at that time limit. So at this point, if nobody takes out any Pokemon for the next few turns, Harrison will win the match.
Because he has less prize cards left, so he's knocked out more Pokemon.
Exactly.
And if, by some chance, Igor knocks out one of the EXs, they end up with 2 prize cards each?
Then I believe it's the next prize card that gets drawn is the winner.
So it comes down to kind of a sudden death.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very exciting.
There's Pokemon Catcher to bring in Mewtwo EX.
Oh, this looks like that might be the case. This is what we're talking about, where the Pokemon EX is, if he now retreats in his own Pokemon EX, he's going to be able to knock out Harrison's Mewtwo EX and draw 2 prize cards.
Right, because Mewtwo EX sitting on the bench doesn't
so
have
he goes,
any support cards.
Goes for the supporter, does not see any. But that's cool, he still has the 7 cards.
Professor Juniper comes in, so he's looking for a switch. He was able to retreat.
Yep.
So now
he had not
Mewtwo
retreated
EX
this turn.
Can come into play and have enough damage to knock out the Mewtwo EX. This is a close match all of a sudden.
Whoever wins is going to have earned this title.
Absolutely. I think just by being here and playing all weekend, to be at this point, they've earned it.
Igor seems very confident here. Igor is looking at his face. He doesn't seem nervous. I think he thinks he has it in the bag.
He's going to draw 2 more prize cards on this turn, and then it'll be interesting to see how. Let's see here. Yep. See how Harrison reacts here.
So that was the Mewtwo EX being knocked out. 2 prize cards for Igor.
Igor took out Harrison's Mewtwo EX. Mewtwo EX is a really strong card, but even more strong against Mewtwo EX.
Right. So what do you think we're going to... Okay, so rather than talk about it, we're seeing a non-EX Pokemon getting subbed in. That still buys Harrison time to try to win this game rather than putting one of his EX naturally vulnerable to this.
And Harrison's, likely looking for a very specific card. He could be, he got that double colorless out there.
And that's a Smeargle, right? So he can in fact see if Igor's got a supporter in his hand, he can look for more cards.
At this point, if he has a switch plus a plus power, he gets them both. Then Mewtwo EX can come in.
So it looks like he's playing. Was that a Professor Oak?
Looks like
theory?
Professor Oak. So he shuffled his hand and drawn 6.
That's what it looks like. All right. So he did not have what he needed. Now he's hoping.
You can see him talking to himself.
For it,
He knows exactly what he needs right here.
So is there any way other than knocking out one of Igor's Pokemon EX that he can take this home?
I think that he has one goal in mind, and that's to knock out the Pokemon EX.
So it's switch in his Mewtwo EX.
Right.
Knock out
but he
for
didn't
all
get
that
the cards
energy.
he needed, apparently.
That is a heartbreaker.
Yeah. Last year's World Championships came down to the last turn as well. So these matches get really close at the end. The Eviolite on Mewtwo on
has
Harrison's
been really
Mewtwo,
good.
and it could play a huge factor in this hand because at the moment I don't believe Igor has the energy he needs.
I'm actually not sure.
I missed what got played just there.
It was a bit off the edge of our camera feed. There was discard. Was it maybe
Harrison looks upset.
Oh, okay. So he was looking for a card, and it's got to be in one of those last two prize cards. So it looks like he is taking the gamble, and it is not paid off for him. And as we were talking about this leading into this, you play with the same 60-card decks, but sometimes you don't have access to everything you need.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you actually get stronger the longer you play because you get those cards back into your hand. So
right,
and that did it.
Yep. We see
the Pokemon catcher into plus power. Igor did what Harrison was trying to do, and he wins.
So, four-time Portugal national champion, one-time world champion. Very well played.
Congratulations to Igor. That was a fantastic match.
Congratulations to Harrison as well. He played that very well at the end there. It just didn't go his way.
Very similar styles.
And you cannot help but grin there. You can see that smile. That's just all the nervousness washing away. And some sympathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that had to happen. Sorry.
These players will both be back next year for the World Championships, I'm sure.
It's not just the winner it's not just first place that gets an invite. It's in fact first, second, third, and fourth. Get an invite and a travel award to next year's World Championship, which is in a new, exotic, and exciting location. Okay. So it looks like switching between the TCG and the video game championships is going to take some of the expertise. So I think we're going to lose our special guest for the time being.
I'll be running a few errands before coming back to cover the video game championships in about 20 minutes from what I understand. Does that sound right?
I think about 20 minutes from now, 15 or 20 minutes.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for talking with us. And in the meantime, we will maybe try to handle some of the comments from the online.
Chris Shepard, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm now
Thank
returning.
You, Chris. I think we have some more swag to give away,
We do have some swag. We do have two more prize packs.
Do we want to do that now?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's jump right into it.
Do we have more trivia questions? I think we have some trivia questions.
And just to remind folks, we got these are the official swag bags here of the Pokemon World Championships 2012. We got this deck box here.
This is pretty cool.
We got Pikachu and the Tiki.
Which is, again, these are only available
here
at this event.
We got the Pikachu hat with the Tiki. Little emblem right there. Check that out. Your binder.
The luggage fob.
Yep, we got that. What is that thing called?
A luggage, a keychain.
Keychain.
It's Pokemon.
It is Pokemon. Whatever it is, it's Pokemon. We got some stickers. We got like a car sticker. Check
window
that out.
cling. And we've got the screen cleaner, which has got the weaknesses and strengths chart on the back of it, which is kind of cool.
All right. So, Arthur, you got a question for us?
I think I got a
just
question.
to remind folks, email your answers to onthespot@gamespot.com. provide your name, the answer, and your mailing address, and your GameSpot handle.
GameSpot handle.
If you're not a registered user at GameSpot, go to GameSpot.com. Registration is free. Get yourself a little profile, and you can enter to win the Pokemon swag that you see. Oh, pencils. There's some pencils.
Are there pencils too? I didn't realize
failed
there
to
were
mention
pencils.
the
Are they
pencils.
Pokemon pencils?
They are Pokemon pencils.
And they have, what do they have? The monkeys on them?
There's
Penseer,
there's
Panpour.
some
Oh no, they have
Panpour.
the black and white starters. So they have
There you go.
Tepig, Ocelot,
They got Tepig.
Snivy.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
All right, so Arthur, jump right in.
The second trivia question is,
Yes.
what is the name of the Pokegift that trainers registered to the official site can receive on their birthday? So one more time, what is the name of the Pokegift that trainers registered to the official site can receive on their birthday?
There you have it, folks.
Seems like a question.
Mail your answer to onthespot@gamespot.com. Include your name, the answer, your mailing address, and your GameSpot user handle, and enter to win all these cool Pokemon items. So what did you think of that last match? I kind of sat back and I watched you guys do your thing, and I definitely learned a lot. So
That was an exciting match. That was very, very close. I mean, both the players played really well, and it came down to kind of at the end, not just luck, but there was a lot of luck involved there. It would look like Harrison was looking to kind of win the game there, and his last Pokemon catcher was in those 2 prize cards. So, and the worst thing is, he knows now that all game long, not just at the end, all game long, he didn't have access to it. So that's going to eat away at him. But he did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to go home with that silver trophy, which is Pikachu holding up that silver cup.
I mean,
really awesome trophies this year.
I mean, he didn't go home empty-handed. I mean, he definitely, it's not being the champ and all, but he got his opportunity to play here, put his skills to the test, and came up a little short. But you know what? And Igor, praise due, man. He played a great game.
He played an amazing game. I mean, it looked a couple times like he was on the back foot. He kind of developed slow. He could have lost the game a couple times there had he not, played right and kind of developed right.
I mean, I noticed that he really kept his composure. When he didn't seem
he was
frazzled at all.
Well, he was nervous game 1. It was kind of apparent, but
Sure.
I think he kind of rallied. And I mean, once you've already lost one game, you can't get much more nervous. You can't lose again, so it's not like you're going to go down any further.
Nope. All right,
so he did well.
So up next, we're going to get ready for the VGC.
The finals.
The finals. Wolf Glick of the Masters. Wolf Glick and Ray Rizzo.
The all-U.S. finals.
Yeah, all U.S. finals. Wolf, 2-time defending U.S. champ, and Ray Rizzo, the 2-time world champ. So, and it's a little bit of a grudge match.
It
don't you
is.
think?
They've played each other a few times.
Yep.
They have a rivalry of sorts ongoing.
Yeah. Well, the stat line was that last year, Ray Rizzo is the one who knocked out
from the contention, right?
So, here's some payback, and payback can be a big doozy because this one's for the title.
And the trophy, the cash prize, all the marbles.
All the marbles. And, just to recap the path that both of them took, if we can bring up that, that bracket. Go ahead.
Ray Rizzo and Junpei Yamamoto.
Yep, in the opening top 8 round.
And Rizzo took that down. And then he took down.
Handily. He kind of had a little trouble in the second match, but
so there was some bluffs that didn't,
some surprises,
some attempts that didn't quite go his way, a little bit of luck, but he took it down pretty handily.
Yep.
And then it was Ray Rizzo and Joe Poloski in the top 4.
Top 4.
And he took that down as well.
Yep. I think handily. He went through there pretty strong. So.
And then on the other side of the pairings was Wolf Glick and Cision Park.
Yep.
In the top 8, and then Wolf Glick advanced to Abel Martinsons, who from Spain.
I think he was from Spain, yeah.
And then took him down as well.
Yep, and then to advance to the finals, here we are, Wolf Glick and Ray Rizzo, going head to head.
We talked a bit about what they're planning to do in the finals, kind of how they're approaching it.
Definitely, we got all their parties. So why don't we talk about a little bit what we can expect from the head-to-head action?
Sure. So we want to start with the U.S. champ, the underdog.
Sure, let's go for it.
Your
Wolf,
favorite?
baby. He is the underdog.
So
what does he got?
Wolf's on Hitmontop, and he has. Let's go down all the Pokemon.
All right,
and then
sure.
We'll go into detail. So he's got Hitmontop, he's got Cresselia, he's got Thundurus, the new black-white, he's got Terrakion, he's got Heatran, and he's got Executor.
Right.
And Heatran, he's the only one in the top 8 to be running him over something like Metagross. But what he's doing is he's starting with Cresselia in play. and then he's using skill swap. And what happens is when he does that, it switches Cresselia and Heatran's skills. And Cresselia's skill is Levitate. When you give that to Heatran, Heatran's weakness against ground, which is a double weakness because of Heatran's type, is negated because he's levitating and doesn't take any damage from ground. So that's kind of setting some setup to do, but it gives you a heavy hitter that his weaknesses are being addressed, which is good. And then he's got Executor, which is kind of an interesting take, one that we don't see anywhere else, but one that he thinks is doing well for him. He's got Power Swap. So apparently what he does with Executor is he uses the Leaf Storm, which Leaf Storm decreases the attack after you use it, and then he'll Power Swap to move that penalty to one of his opponent's Pokemon. So it's interesting. It's worked for him, of course. He's gotten here this far.
Switching our
over
sheet to Ray Rizzo. It seems like that he's a pretty conventional dude. You know, he doesn't like.
So we're actually seeing some people saying there's a delay for audio.
Oh, okay. I'm not too sure about that, but I guess we'll get our folks on that to get that audio synced up. But in the meantime, Ray Rizzo, you know, he's
Rizzo.
pretty much.
So we saw
his bread and butter deck.
Right. So he's kind of a straightforward, nothing tricky, nothing too new and novel, but still solid choices. He's on Tyranitar. He's on Garchomp, just big, heavy hitters. He's on Cresselia as well. He's got a Hydreigon, he's got a Rotom, and he's got a Metagross. And so it's interesting, he's got 3 levitating Pokemon, which is kind of good because Levitate turns off things like Earthquake,
right.
Particularly in this event where there's doubles. It's something you're going to see a lot of, so he's coming prepared for that. He has got some clear counter picks. The Metagross is good against Garchomp and some of the other Dragon types, so he's well prepared. And his team's kind of interesting. You know, starting off with Tyranitar, he has the option of kind of representing a Sand type because Tyranitar starts the Sandstorm when he comes in, but he can also represent something like a Trick Room, where the slower, big heavy hitter Pokemon, you do that and they start hitting first. And so he's representing kind of multiple angles of attack, each of which he can actually go into. It's not just a bluff. He has, kind of divergent attack bands from the start. That's worked well for him. They both made finals with this. You're still on the underdog plan here?
I still am. Truth be told, I really don't know much about what's going on, but I always root for the underdog. I'm a big fan of, the up-and-comer or, the dude who's kind of been beaten down a little bit, rising to the occasion. And, it's a perfect opportunity to do it here against the 2-time defending champ.
You don't think that, 3 times a champ is just a better story?
I think it is a great story. Better? Not too sure, I would like to see some new faces.
I don't know. Karate Kid? Karate Kid 2? Karate Kid 3? You didn't, want a new Karate Kid for the sequels.
I didn't want
you
a
wanted
new Ralph
the same
Macchio.
person, right?
I did. Yes, I do. I am a fan of Ralph Macchio. I'd like to see him finish off that trilogy. But you know what? We're gonna offer you guys some sights and scenes of the show floor, and we'll get started with the VGC as soon as they're ready.
Just a couple minutes.
A couple minutes.
All right, we'll be back for you guys in just a couple minutes.
Definitely.